Hey out there on YouTube. You're watching Roll for Crit. It's a special live stream presentation of our Meeple Gallery, which is what we
hmm
call the viewer comments. Isn't that right? I'm
That's
Jonathan.
I'm well, and usually we record these videos and look through all your comments because you have really interesting things to say. But since we're all home, we thought we might as well stream them so you can then directly respond to us and tell us how wrong our opinions are.
That's right. If you're in the chat room right now, we will take your comments there too. A lot of subjects to cover. It's been a minute since we did one of these, so we're going to be at it for a while. A lot of good conversations to have. And once again, as always, if there's anything you notice in the chat about our audio or our video, something's off, one of us is frozen, please just point it out and we'll try to fix it right here for you. Because, sometimes this isn't our forte. But we thank you for joining us. So, let's get into it. As I said, lots of exciting things to talk about. Starting off with the Golden Geek nominees, which at this point they have now released the winners of Board Game Geek's Golden Geek Awards. We discussed the nominees, so at the time of the comments I'm going to read, they didn't know what the winners were going to be. Ooh, that'll add a little bit of, you'll have some, foresight into what they will eventually see. It's like time travel in a way.
Well, I want to say this now. There is a lot of interesting discussions going around it. We are planning to do a separate video to talk about that. So if you are curious more about that, don't expect to hear it here. We will make a whole separate video for that.
Maybe you'll get a little tease. We'll see.
Yes,
We'll see where
a
things
tease,
take
but not
us.
the full discussion.
Hey, maybe we'll, no promises. All right. So John S. said, if this is all based on internet votes, I think Wingspan will kill all the other games, no? John S., you were right on the money. You were right about Wingspan winning with the internet votes, although I don't know that it's exclusively tied to the internet. But again, maybe that's something for the later discussion. Let's see. Daniel de Rosiers, I don't know how to pronounce it. It seems French, said, I feel like the big snub is unmatched for artwork. At least a nod. The board itself is meh, but the artwork on the cards is absolutely phenomenal, and the minis are solid. I think that's a fair point out for a snub, right? The art in Unmatched is pretty good.
No, I very much agree. I mean, yeah, the board is designed in a way so mechanically, you have the different sectors, but sometimes that doesn't come through as well. But on the cards are just like almost, maybe not all of them because I can't remember off the top of my head, but most of them would be like, yeah, I would, if that was a print, I'd hang that on my wall.
Yeah, there's some really gorgeous stuff in there. We have our first technical advice from the chat. Maybe straighten out the headset mic a little bit. They said it's a little bit poppy, just the mic itself. Just like, yeah, that's probably fine. That should be fine. Slight adjustments. But otherwise, I think they can see and hear us just fine. So, again, we appreciate it. All right, we're going to keep moving now. Kareem Thalgard said, I would have liked to have seen Europe divided in the two-player category and Heroes of Stalingrad in Best War Game. So there's, a couple things. Everyone is not always going to be happy with all the nominees. There are things they're not going to have in there. Rico Cordova said, Barrage is the best game of the year, IMO. I've actually played most of those games, and Barrage was head and shoulders better than the rest. Rico Cordova is a big Barrage fanboy. He really stands that game.
I think that's perfectly fine. I mean, when it comes to these lists, honestly, I think it's better to look at not the winner, but just who made the list.
Right.
Because honestly, if you take that, you're going to have a fun time no matter what, usually.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Max Hansen.
There's your little taste of how I'm gonna have my opinions on when we talk about this.
You can get some of them probably from the first video too. Max Hansen said he loved seeing U-Boat get a ton of nominations. Yeah, that was cool. Bo Brenner said Point Salad is the best family-ready game of the year. Tiny Town's Cartographers and Wingspan are much too hard for a non-gamer.
We talked about this in the video. And I think we'll talk more about in the results. And honestly, I think a lot of people have said very fair things about just what do the categories actually mean?
Yeah, and it turns out nothing. And I think Tiny Towns and Cartographers, Tiny Towns especially, I think you could teach those to non-gamers. Wingspan, yeah, I think is a little bit more extreme. But I think Tiny Towns isn't too hard.
They're not per se, but it's once again like I know, like, for example, I've gone to Magic tournaments where I've seen a kid, like maybe 10 at most, and he just dominates the draft. Meanwhile, like my parents their eyes are gonna glaze over. So like it really depends. I don't know what would be the average.
Well, I think non-game. I think that kid is not a non-gamer. That kid's a gamer. So yeah, I think they're saying. I mean, if you're talking about what family game means, I guess that's a fair point. Maybe they should call it the non-gamer award or something, right? I don't know.
We'll talk more about my thoughts on that at a later time.
This is a bad viewer comments if all we're going to say is wait until next time.
Well, only for this one, okay? This one deserves its own video.
It's okay. We can spread the love of our thoughts more than one place. It's not like the first time we've repeated ourselves on our channel. I had a suggestion about the Best Podcast Award. I said there should be a Best YouTube channel or Best Visual Medium, perhaps, if their videos are hosted somewhere else. Kevy B, though, disagrees, said I can't see a YouTube category. Dice Tower would win every year. Their quality may not match other channels, but its output is equal to a dozen others combined, and its influence is so strong. If anything, I'd just dump the Podcast Award. My response to that is to say they should do what I think they maybe already do with the Podcast Award.
I was going to ask, like, once you win, you can't win again, I thought.
Yeah, I believe that's the case. If you win one year, you won't win the following. You're not even nominated the following years.
So pretty much the first year will go to Dice Tower.
Right.
And then... Oh, the second year we'll go to Shut Up and Sit Down. And then...
I don't know. There's a lot. There's a lot. No, yeah, I think that there's still room for that. And maybe they should just get their own... best, like a whole separate awards category someone should put together just for board game video channels, the most niche.
Best YouTube channel involving two guys, one bald, one with a beard.
I'm not fishing for an award. That's not what I'm trying to do. I don't believe we deserve any award, clearly, as you can see if you've watched this far.
Brandon does confirm that is what they do with the podcast.
Okay, so good to know. Yeah, so an easy fix. All right, moving off of the awards, and again, stay tuned to our channel if you want to hear more about that later on. Let's talk about some gaming news from the past month. Smash Up, we discussed, is getting a Marvel set. And I think for the most part, we're intrigued by it. But there's still a lot of details yet to come. But a lot of people, it turns out, aren't that excited. Aaron Smith, for example, said, Smash Up with licensed properties feels wrong. Like it goes against the spirit of the game. And along those same lines, Green Jin said, I hate the idea of Smash Up Marvel. Characters instead of minions is lame. Official licenses instead of parodies is lame. Treading on the superheroes faction. It's lame. Skipping this one big time. What do you think about that? Like this, it seems like they just don't like the idea at all of licenses in there. Which I guess you could argue Munchkin sort of already was that, but it's a different thing. Well,
the reason why I think Munchkin is a little less, I guess, stepping on the toes is because a lot of Smash Up is sort of parody. Like there is a superhero faction already.
Right.
And Munchkin is a parody of Dungeons and Dragons. So it almost felt like a better fit.
Yeah, and also of course it's a card game itself, so it's more natural.
Yeah, and it does come off. I mean, I can't remember when they announced that compared to when Magic announced its Godzilla promos. The same sort of thing. It feels like, is it because it's a good fit, or is it just because are you getting it because the Marvel license is attached to it, or the Godzilla because you want the Godzilla cards? In my case, it feels like almost like it's a hook to just grab you, not like a good idea.
A cash grab.
Yeah. A little bit, maybe for some people.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely understand that feeling. I mean, it's nice. It feels like it's less pure now. It's like Smash Up was its own thing, but now it's like, well, now it's Smash Up Disney, or just like even code names. But of course, there's always the option to just not buy those sets.
Right, and that's the nice thing. I think if you really, I mean, someone said it, he'll skip it. He didn't say not playing Smash Up. He said I will skip it.
Yeah, and it's not as if we have what? How many expansions are there for Smash Up? How many factions? There's a lot. So like they spent their time putting the work into those original ideas.
Yeah.
I think they've earned the right to do a few licenses, they put the work in the chat here. Earthfat asked, when are you guys going to create your own awards like BGG and Dice Tower? I'd buy all your nominees. What do you think?
Great. We're starting with nominating and it's already the winner, Dino Hunt. I'm calling it now. What other games do I want to force people to buy and play?
I think they have to be yearly. Are we going back in time to Dino Hunt?
There's time travel in that game.
Yeah, Brandon says the point of those entities is that it's a large number of people. If you want our awards, you can just see our top games each year. Yeah, I think that's mostly true. Who knows what will happen as time goes on, but for now you have our top 10s.
Working on some things, yeah. For now, the top 10s are usually a good place to look. And it's definitely always curious too to compare the mass voting versus like people picking like us, like just two people saying these are our top 10
versus just a couple of schmucks.
I wasn't trying to be too hard. I felt like I already spent my self-insulting, but sure, why not?
There's always more. All right, back to Marvel. Now, some people are not interested in it for totally different reasons. Dean Muramoto said, I am so far not interested because I enjoy Marvel Champions and Legendary Marvel more than Smash Up. I'm more excited about seeing things about Marvel United. So he just thinks he's got his Marvel fix from other places, which I think we've kind of talked about too.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I mean, going back to the previous example I said with Godzilla and Magic, one of the things that's nice about that is, yes, there is a Godzilla board game that isn't very good, and there's a new Chronos card game I haven't had to try out yet. But Marvel has a lot of games that cover there's hidden roles with the.
I don't know if that's true.
There's the legendary champions and versus. Pretty much, if you have a niche character, they're probably in there.
Yeah.
It's just that it's a very flooded marketplace.
I think that I don't know that I would call it flooded though, to be honest. Like I think now you have a lot of bases covered with champions and legendary, and there's versus too, I suppose. But there's a lot of other Marvel games that just aren't that good necessarily, or aren't like. I mean, there's so much Marvel that I feel like there's so many avenues you could explore. There's definitely the bases are covered when you're talking about like Marvel the game.
You're right, but the thing is, Smash Up fits more into the Marvel the game style. It's not taking
right.
How can we do a new twist on like bringing a roll and write somehow that makes really sense, or really focus on maybe Nick Fury storyline? I don't know.
Yeah, right. I see where you're coming from. One of the new sets they announced, or one of the factions in it, is going to be the Ultimates. We're talking about what that means exactly. Brian Kovac asked, do they mean the 2015 Ultimates with Black Panther, Blue Marvel, etc.? I guess there's different Ultimates teams from different time periods.
I mean,
I don't know.
You could say that with Avengers. I'm sure,
right.
Like right now, all we know is Captain Marvel, I believe. So whichever one has.
From what I kind of looked into, it seems like he might be right that like the Ultimates I'm thinking of, the original ones, the ones they showed off. Like I mean, like you said, Captain Marvel. I don't know if she was part of that original team. I think maybe it is in this new direction. I don't know. I can't keep up with all that stuff. We also talked about the X-Men. And I thought this was just an interesting tangent here. Cam B26 said it's interesting that Disney, who now outright owns the property, and other companies have been hesitant to really market X-Men in all media, let alone tabletop gaming. When he said Marvel Smash Up, I immediately thought of Marvel Champions. They've been extremely hesitant to even mention the word X-Men, even though it's becoming the elephant in the room. I'm not sure what they are afraid of. And he goes on to talk a little bit more about different X-Men things. But yeah, why are there not X-Men? We have them in Legendary and Versus, but why they own it now? Why does it seem like they don't want to talk about it?
Well, here are my guesses. One, the gears in large companies take a long time to shift. So it's hard for them to be like, now we like them after hating. Two, at least in my mind, you're free to tell me otherwise, Jonathan. But the X-Men have the most depressing stories. Like their future is always bleak. And that could be maybe a problem they're worried about, like they're trying to keep this a bit more upbeat. But I feel like that's a really bad excuse if that is the case.
Right.
I just know that's my own opinion of reading them.
Since,
Or not reading them, but knowing about
I mean,
them.
considering how popular the 90s cartoon was, I think they can
Right.
clearly get around that.
And I mean, I assume X-Men did well for Legendary because they've been coming back to them multiple times.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
it does seem
the
weird.
third option is they're working on something right now. Like, we're going to have a movie. We're going to try to get this out, 2021. So we want to make sure all the X-Men stuff comes out around that, which
That's
is, I
what
think,
I
is the most
think.
likely one.
I think you're right.
Which I think is sort of like, yeah, but if you release X-Men now, you can just make another one. There are
right.
God knows how many X-Men.
Yeah, like I don't think that they may not even know if they're making another X-Men movie. I think they're just like, well, why should we promote X-Men if we don't have a movie right now? But I mean, they own the Fox ones now, right? Or maybe Fox still gets some of that money. I don't know how all the deals work out.
It still seems to be like for Champions and any of these games that were sort of as you called them, the Marvel Universe games, X-Men are a no-brainer because it's just like, congrats, you just added 100 people to your roster of possible cards.
Yeah, they're pretty good. We will see. All right, now we're going to talk about a little company, maybe my favorite company with 4 letters, and it's called.
All right. If you really spell Nintendo poorly.
No, it's only 4 letters, and they're the whole name. It's CMON. And as usual, they're going through some stuff. We talked about how they had this thing about this going concern. They're having financial issues. There's this red flag raised that maybe the company is going through some hard times. We're trying to get to the bottom of all of it. Tapcat, said, I have been an accountant for many years, so good person to comment.
All right.
And I would not hand CMON my money based on promises right now. Their explanation of the going concern issue is undoubtedly true as far as it goes, but any first-year auditor would understand that same explanation, and there is no way the dispute has reached this point without a highly experienced partner of the auditing firm getting involved with the discussions. So while the specific accounting treatment they talk about makes sense to me, I find it wholly unbelievable that the auditing firm is stuck on one easily understood point. They would be looking at CMON's financial position as a whole and finding reasons to doubt that they can continue operations indefinitely. It's a big deal to issue an opinion of this type for a publicly traded company, and it isn't something the auditor would do lightly. And then they say also they want to point out this was just one of 3 issues holding up their report, red flags, and they would not trust any new Kickstarters that they would even be fulfilled at this point. So,
wow, so not even for I've just Ankh.
Not even for Ankh. So that's just one accountant's
this is the
opinion.
kind of stuff I want to hear. Yeah, it's better than you and I could handle it because, like we said in the video, I can't remember the last time I took a finance class.
I can. Wait, I can't because I never did it. So a lot of really great analysis there. That sounds like it rings true to me, to my ears, my novice ears. Here they are. Thomas Romanelli said, anytime you're required to issue a public statement by a governmental authority, you have a problem. That problem is further compounded when you decide to issue the statement with the poorly chosen wording that includes a dismissive tone regarding, quote, a highly technical term. I'm not an accountant, unlike Tapcat, but the wiki entry is pretty clear. An auditor concluded that CMON may not have the resources to maintain operations and pay its creditors within the next year. So again, it keeps going with, people are not feeling, they're not maybe buying CMON's answer to this. And they feel that it's going beyond that.
Brandon in the chat actually agrees that stopped him from backing their recent campaign. I assume he means Ankh. And Earthfat has said, one man's schmuck is another man's hero. So get your cape on, Jonathan.
I will. Leroy Porkins now in the comments here, which is a pretty good name, said the biggest problem is that they still hold on to Kickstarter exclusives. Other publishers have moved to backer exclusives, so when they overprint, they can resell it without complaining. Meanwhile, Tor Ivar Wilhelmsen, said their mistake is to be a publicly traded company. This is rare in the board game industry. The smaller players are almost exclusively privately held, and thus only as transparent as they want to be. They can keep everything secret legally. Largely, only Steve Jackson Games and lately Stonemaier choose to reveal details about their company. So Leroy, like many people, doesn't like their Kickstarter strategies. Tor is saying their problem is that they just have to be honest with us. It sounds like. What do you think? What do you think is their biggest mistake?
I mean, personally, my thoughts about Kickstarter exclusives.
I know you're not a fan.
Not a fan when they're mechanic exclusives. And, especially after the Time Machine just shows how big of an issue that is, how many people wanted those. It actually seems like you're sitting on money and you're refusing to make more. And meanwhile, the public company idea, I mean, I sort of get it. At the same time, it sort of sounds like your problem is that you got caught. If you didn't get caught stealing, that'd be okay. So I don't know if that's really.
Well, it's maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Not that I'm saying they're stealing, but just the way that was described of the problem is being a public company.
Right. Yeah, there's nuance to it, I think.
But I mean, I would like to see maybe more. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but this is optimistic of me, like more public companies in the board game to be like more mainstream. I would like that they wouldn't have to do a whole Kickstarter and force Kickstarter exclusives onto us because Ankh will sell well in a Walmart or Target. I would like for that to be the case. I just don't know if we're there or will we get there.
Yeah, I do not know. A lot of things uncertain right now for a lot of reasons, for CMON and many others. And of course, the worst case scenario of all this is that CMON is no longer a company. And we said, I think in our original story that, we don't want that to happen, of course. We think they do produce some great games in spite of their maybe sometimes questionable business practices. Shane Anigans, another great name, said, I don't think it'll be a big loss if CMON ceases to exist. Surely the designers, artists, and sculptors will move on to other companies or will establish their own with the knowledge and experience they've acquired. Which is an optimistic viewpoint. I think that's probably true largely, but
yeah.
Also, CMON they're a big company with a lot of money and they have the time and they can devote resources to these games in some ways that other companies could not. So I definitely think there would be a gap that some of these people, they wouldn't be able to just do what they're doing now somewhere else. And a lot of people would be out of work. So yeah, I think, eventually like Eric Lang wouldn't be homeless. You know what I mean? No. He'd find another way to make money, but yeah, it would still, I think, overall be a loss from my perspective.
Yeah, like I said, there's still the option in the video. I think they could sell Zombicide, for example, or something like that to keep them afloat. I think, at least. I don't know if there's any comment that says otherwise, but well, I mean, we will see, especially with everything going on now. Things are crazy.
Yeah, in the chat here, Hippie said, oops, I dropped 180 on Ankh, hoping it is delivered. I hope that it is too. I mean, we both were more optimistic about Ankh. I don't think that it's like, oh yeah, you're definitely not going to get it. I think most likely they will deliver it, but it's, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not an employee there, so I don't know. It's impossible to say 100%, I think, right now. But speaking of Ankh, let's talk about Ankh. Norty left a comment. Another person who said, Ankh is a retail purchase for me, based on the going concern, and their stock is prohibited from being traded on the Chinese market, as we said. I already have $350 in Kickstarter money to them. I'm waiting on being delivered. So maybe that's not looking so great for you, Hippie, but hopefully that's an outlier. Maybe that's not the standard. Meanwhile, Fernando Kano G said Ankh and Frosthaven start at the same price, $100 USD. I personally don't think they're even in the same category, component and gameplay wise. Crazy. What do you think? Did you back Ankh, Will?
I did back Ankh because I thought, like I said, I thought Ankh would be a safe at least. I didn't know beyond that. In particular, is already doing very well.
Mm-hmm. So,
and I do think people are going to be curious about us. If it does come out, they're going to want to know our thoughts on it.
Yeah.
Component-wise, though, if we're going to compare the two, assuming Frosthaven is similar to Gloomhaven. Though, I mean, if you're gonna go by hours, Gloomhaven's gonna shoot out of the water. I mean, it's just a lot of the price I think of Ankh comes from the minis. If we're talking strictly component wise, I don't know how much they charge for testing and designing and all that. You know, the Gloomhaven I have at least is punchboard. I don't remember if there's a mini version for Frosthaven, but it's still packed to the brim with stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I agree
I
with
think
that.
sorry.
No, it's okay. Go ahead, finish your thought.
I was gonna say it's definitely one of those things too. Though it's like do you prefer a large campaign style or to play lots of multiple games? If you're in that multiple strategy game, Ankh might get you more time, maybe because you're just rotating players, not getting the same people, just trying to play a game and master it. When Gloomhaven is like your D&D campaign.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I think that I don't know. I think clearly, I think Frosthaven is working some kind of magic to get their price that low. I think that, yeah, the minis are really nice. I suspect that for Frosthaven, they probably expected to fund really, really well, like well over their goal. Maybe not as much as they did, which was incredible, but I think they were probably able to keep the price down on the basis of they assumed they're going to be printing a lot and things like that. Whereas, I mean, Ankh was very successful too, and CMON has very successful Kickstarters, but I think, well, this is me maybe being cynical, but I think probably CMON is a little more concerned about their bottom line, and maybe they aren't cutting corners sounds negative. They aren't trying to save costs in all the places and like trying to like scrape every dollar out of it for the consumer. They're like, we want to make sure this is profitable. This is the standard price of all our games. Like people have an expectation, they buy it. I don't know. I think it's two different companies and two different types of games. Like it's in some ways it's apples and oranges, but yeah, I'm kind of with that person. I feel like for my money, if you're just looking purely in terms of content and stuff, I think Frosthaven pretty easily has it beat. But obviously, like you said, if you just any game, if you play it, you could buy a $20 game and get more hours than you might out of Frosthaven if you really like it.
I mean, you're absolutely right. Depends on your group and who's at your table. But I mean, Gloomhaven, I think, has already proven itself. And we know Frosthaven's more of an implementation of that. And while Ankh is part of the Legends trilogy, I can't remember. They actually do have a name now. And both of the previous games are well loved. We loved Rising Sun. It is very different mechanics.
Let's get to that trilogy.
Oh,
because Tim Young commented on our video about Ankh and CMON, said, "I don't understand how you two haven't played Blood Rage." People were up in arms. Like 2 or 3 people were mildly concerned and confused and want us to play Blood Rage. I feel like we mention it every time CMON comes up, that it's our blind spot from them.
Well, I have heard that a friend of mine who lives in Boston.
You've heard this, like on the news?
Yeah, he said, yes, I heard it on the news. No, I was talking to him a while back, and he said, like, yeah, I love Blood Rage. So now I'm like, maybe I need to make a trip up there.
The video game, you mean, or the board game?
The board game.
Oh wait, sorry, I'm thinking of. I thought of Bloodborne, which was based on a video game. Oh, so he actually has the Blood Rage video game.
I believe so. He has the Blood Rage board game.
Yeah.
Not the video game.
Guys, in quarantine, things are hard. Sometimes my brain gets confused. Yeah, I mean, I think that, it seems like a game that honestly, look, I'm not going to spend your money for you, but I think you should just buy it. Maybe not now, because who knows when we'll get to play it, but I have no doubt you would love that game. I
did the time machine to try to get the Kickstarter exclusives, and I was off by like 3 minutes.
I think you just got to bite that bullet and forget about those exclusives. I think it's just...
it's too hard for me. I'd rather find someone else who has a copy and just play theirs.
You got to get past that. I mean,
then I think... you buy it.
No, you're the one who wants it. People in the chat or comment, let us know. Do you think is it Bloodborne or Rage still worth it without those Kickstarter exclusives? I bet it's still pretty damn good just with that base box. People in the chat are talking about the Ankh versus Frosthaven. The component wise, Brandon says Ankh will blow Frosthaven out of the water. plastic tokens, rubber mats, sick minis. So, your mileage may vary. All right. Let's talk about Frosthaven, which we touched on a little bit. Let's get into that a little deeper. Michael Rodriguez said, having never played Gloomhaven, I wish Jaws of the Lion, that's the smaller version of Gloomhaven, sort of like the starter set with new scenarios and classes, would have come out before Frosthaven. I would have liked to play and try out the game. It just seems like a beast to jump in at this time. So Jaws of the Lion is supposed to be released later this year, so it will be out before Frosthaven comes out, but you didn't have the chance to play it before you chose to back.
Yeah, I think that'd be fair. I mean, it's probably just one of those things where they couldn't get it done in time. But yeah, it would have been really good if not Frosthaven, if Jaws of the Lion came out first for like a month, so people played it a bit and be like, "Oh, I really love this. This is fun." Frosthaven, what's this? Oh, it's like 10 times better.
Yeah, it seems like it would be good, but of course, there's always retail, so that is what it is.
And Gloomhaven last time got a reprint. And I don't remember if there are any. I don't think there are any Kickstarter exclusive for Frosthaven outside of like maybe some metal coins or something, like not component stuff. So you're not gonna feel like you're not gonna have that blood rage argument we just had.
That's right. By the way, James Novak pointed out in the chat, Blood Rage Digital comes out on Steam May 27th.
Well, I know what we're doing in the end of this month.
There you go. There's the answer right there. Since we can't... Brandon Graham chimes in. Blood Rage is perfectly fine without the Kickstarter stuff. Highly recommended.
The thing is, it's fine, but I'll have that voice nagging in the back of my head. That I'm missing those mechanically different stuff.
It's like... just pretend it's like an expansion that you just haven't bought yet. Just think of it like that. All right. Let's continue. Elias Hartmark, going back to Frosthaven, said, there's no point in backing Frosthaven since shipping will make it more expensive than retail. So we talked a lot about how great the price is, but factoring in shipping, that may be something to consider. Vault Boy said the original Gloomhaven was $64 or $79, and that price included shipping. This was a ridiculous deal for the game. The second campaign was $99 plus shipping and handling. Makes sense for Frosthaven to be priced similar to the second Kickstarter. But yeah, I guess, shipping is always a thing that they get you that way. Sometimes I don't look back into the details, because...
Well, it's one of those things where back then, they were like, look, we had this great, huge game. We don't know if people are going to like it. We got to include shipping. Now they're like, yeah, everyone freaking loves Gloomhaven. It won everything. They'll pay for shipping. Right. It's
right.
They know us.
Hippie in the chat said Jaws of the Lion hits in August, according to an email they saw today. So
fingers crossed.
That's hot off the presses. Yeah, right. Who knows? Itai248 said, never played Gloomhaven, and I don't see the hype over this one. They don't offer any stretch goals, and the price is likely to be the same for retail. And there are other Kickstarter projects that offered much more for less or about the same amount of money. Oathsworn, Arena, The Contest, etc. That's a perspective. I think for a lot of people, they just fell in love with the amount of stuff. Even Oathsworn, which I think we both really liked in some ways more than Gloomhaven, I still don't think you can compare it in terms of, again, if what you're looking for is just length, I don't think anything beats Gloomhaven or Frosthaven of just like going as an example, I'll just jump to the next comment. Chris Dunn said, my crew plowed through Gloomhaven and Forgotten Circles in about 8 months.
Plowed through in 8 months.
Yeah. Right. They said we were in the process of going back for a second playthrough to do the scenarios we missed when the quarantine hit. They tried to solo it, but found it too fiddly to manage alone, and said hopefully Frosthaven anticipation will tide them over for the next few months. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there. I think that's one of the biggest draws for people. So that's something. So that's all our Frosthaven talk for now. But we can keep on Kickstarter a bit. Our last news roundup, we were talking about the top 10 Kickstarters, which Frosthaven now is at the top of. and we had a fun little guessing game. We played Family Feud to see if you could get all, and you got most of them. I thought you did pretty well.
Not bad.
Yeah, I thought there are a couple you got that I never would have thought of, I don't think, for sure. And Maximilian said, you missed Etherfields on your list of the most funded Kickstarter games. It should be right between Zombicide and Gotham. Now, I checked in on this, and he's right. I was using a top 10 list that was posted on the gaming news website icv2.com, which is usually very reliable, and for whatever reason, I don't understand why, because it had Frosthaven on it, which you'd think would be the most recent data. They didn't have Etherfields on there, but Etherfields did make enough money to, it should have been like, it was at number 8 or 7 on the list.
I even was saying that. I was like,
It was
there's
one of
the
your
other
guesses.
Awakened Realms, the Dream one. I'm surprised. And you're like, no, those last ones.
Yeah, would have pushed Rising Sun off the list, which was number 10.
We sort of did get it.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know why. I don't know if they had a slightly different criteria or if they just had for some reason missed that one and they're checking on the list, but I trusted them and I paid the price. And Scott Armstrong said he'd be interested in a video where we share our thoughts on those top 10 most funded board games. Maybe that's something. I don't know. Any brief thoughts right now? I think we said all of them for the most part were deserving, but it would be interesting maybe to dive deeper into why we think they're on there.
No, I think that could be an interesting discussion of why we think they get funded. Do we think it's for good or bad reasons? Yeah, I think we could have a pretty good discussion about that, and then I'd love to hear what you guys would think about it, our thoughts on it.
Yeah, it would be good to see. So we'll jump back into the chat here for a sec. Let's see. Hippie said they figured it out. They saw it. Jaws of the Lion is available in July at Target only, and then everywhere else in August. So that's pretty soon. Pretty soon.
That is.
Michael Muller said, Blood Rage is worth a try as lots of people love it. But for me, it was extremely underwhelming. So, hey, there's a contrary opinion for you.
All right.
Ivan said Family Feud would be fun to stream. I don't know if, I mean, yeah, maybe we could stream it, but I definitely after that was like, we should do more Family Feud games about board games because I thought that was pretty fun.
No, that was pretty fun. We can go back and forth, but I just want to mention a fun Family Feud story we have. You, Jonathan, were gifted Marvel Family Feud.
No, it was not me. It was.
Oh, I thought it was you.
It was our friend Neil. I believe Ivan gave it to him. The Marvel Family Feud.
But we were together and we played it. And I was the host, the one reading the questions. And whoever made these questions was like, sort of watch the Marvel movies and just like, here are the name of the characters. Like one of them was, which heroes would be the best to have a barbecue with? And it was like, number 1, Captain America. Number 2, not Captain Marvel, Star-Lord. Number 3, Hulk. Number 4, Iron Man. Number 5, Star-Lord again.
Yeah, at least one of them had the same character twice. It was, yeah, there were some questions there. Interesting concept, but maybe not the best execution. Probably a tough thing to write. Check out that Marvel Family Feud. There were a few other ones like very similar box and presentation. I wonder if other things like the Disney version or whatever maybe is a little better just because, like you said, the Marvel one, it seemed like they were just sticking to the movies and it was like a very limited pool of...
Even then, like, it was like as if they didn't even fully watch the movies. Like, it was just sort of in the background.
Right.
But, yeah, we could also do, if people are interested, I know, like, they have Family Feud, Monopoly, like, Trivia Pursuit on digital, which would be much easier to stream. For us playing. I mean, let us know if you'd like to watch us play those.
Yeah. Yeah. Ivan also wants to know who the best host of Family Feud was. Obviously, it's Richard Dawson. He's the best.
I don't know the names of everyone, so
that's I don't know if he was the first Family Feud host, but I think was the most famous of like the old hosts. He would kiss every female contestant on the lips when he introduced them. You could do that back then. You couldn't do that today. That was his gimmick. But, you know, Steve Harvey's fun, and so is Al Borland from Home Improvement, whatever his real name is. Hoser agrees, Dawson. All right. Now, let's get into a more serious topic, perhaps. We've been talking about the state of conventions for a while now. I think even in our last viewer comments, we were talking about it. And that's just the subject du jour right now, so we got to talk about it.
Yeah, if I recall last time, people were not happy with us that we thought Gen Con might need to be delayed.
Well, yeah, we'll get into it. People had different mixed opinions. Most recently, of course, the UK Games Expo was canceled. And Samurai Fantana said, "This is how I found out UK Games Expo was canceled. As a ticket holder, you'd think they'd have sent an email, but no."
I mean, I like to believe we're on the pulse of the news, but not that good.
That's rough. I wanted, give them the benefit of the doubt and say maybe your spam filter got it or something, but yeah, that's not so great. They probably should have alerted you about that. But as you said, Gen Con, of course, is the big one right now. There's other ones that haven't been, they haven't announced what they're doing, but I think that's the next closest one that is huge. That was still up. As of right now, it is still on. We've been speculating about it. Mutton Chop Piper said, "If anyone has been to Gen Con, you know that in the vendor hall sometimes there are so many people you can't walk down the aisles. I will not be attending. I'm an asthmatic. Right now I'm staying home. We don't go out. If I get the COVID, I probably won't survive. I predict Gen Con will be pushed back at first, then eventually canceled. It's just too much of a risk." And Galahax agreed, said they probably should cancel it simply because of the magnitude of it all. As you said, there are people from all over the planet that come to this thing, and all you're going to need is one guy who ends up being the asymptomatic type. He's going to infect innocently, unknowingly, and those people are going to go back to where they're from. New cases will crop
my
up.
whole plan.
I have my tickets for me, my wife, and 1-year-old. This is supposed to be my first Gen Con, and I'm actually praying they cancel it.
Wow, that stinks if this is your first, because I feel bad in the sense of like, one, it's your first, so you're getting excited to go, and it must feel terrible to be like, it's my first, and as he said, he's to be praying for it to cancel. Whether you agree or not, it's just such a sad feeling to have, because I mean, like the comment even before that, to be thinking like, if I go and get sick, it's game over for me, literally.
Yeah, and even if you don't go and it happens, you might have to now be cautious for another month, 6 months,
Oh my God! Imagine if they caught it, if it was announced during the convention, and every one of us had to be put in quarantine, like in the whatever hotel or building you were in. That would just be.
Yeah, that's a nightmare I don't want to consider. Brian Andrews commented, "I think Gen Con are treading a very difficult path. A lot of people who've booked holidays are not getting refunds, so people might not want to take the risk. Right at the beginning here in the UK, I was waiting to hear about a concert that was canceled, and there were a lot of bad feelings from people who weren't confident about making plans and spending money on travel and arrangements. Everyone's waiting for the curve to level out, but even then, you still won't be able to have mass gatherings. I think this is a bridge too far. It would cause a spike in infections. How would the city hosting feel if they suddenly had to deal with more infections every week? How would hotels cope?" It's kind of like what you were saying, if they had to cope with these things going on. Now that they're online every weekday, he's mentioning Games Workshop over in the UK. They do a lot over there, and they've canceled their biggest event of the year, but now they're online with 3 hours of live streaming on Twitch every day, sharing advice and tips, giving seminars. And he's running a D&D game online. So if there's an online Gen Con happening, maybe GMs who signed up could do them remotely, things like that. And perhaps people could contribute to an online convention to go to local businesses or communities who would have made money from this. So,
no question.
Those are some ideas.
I think what they could do, and I think it would be an amazing move, and not only that, it would sort of, if they were the ones to do it, like to show all the other conventions what to do. Like we talked about recently about PAX Unplugged, not PAX Unplugged, wow. Paizo, sorry. Oh. I had the first letter, doing their online convention for role-playing and stuff. Like, what if Gen Con was like, look, we're going to take the volunteers. We know whatever people we hire. Like, we can test them all so that only they're in the hall. But the way is we set up cameras everywhere. We pretty much make this giant virtual hall so, like, they can still use the space. They take advantage of that space. So if they want to make like a big stadium for like a giant King of Tokyo game or something to match people up for role playing, and they have people watching over and serve as that, to pretty much make the largest digital board game convention, it'd be an amazing undertaking if they could pull that off. And we'd be talking about it for years to come.
So I think, yeah, I think that, I mean, that sounds awesome. I think there are a lot of different ways that they could be creative and do. We've already seen, like you said, with PaizoCon. I think, Gen Con has a lot of resources and a lot of people and a lot of ideas, and they could make something really cool like that happen for sure. And put it in VR, and I'm all over it, baby. I'll be very excited. We've been,
Yeah, since you have my VR headset right now.
yeah, that's right. Well, hey, we don't need to get into the. I don't know why you had to make it personal. Um, Now we've been speculating a lot about whether or not they will cancel. Taylor Wynn has thought about why maybe they haven't announced either way yet. Said one important thing to add here: these conventions cannot officially cancel their event until they are forced to by their local governments. This is because any establishment that has taken on reservations for that event can't issue a lot of refunds because their state hasn't enforced anything yet. A lot of people have non-refundable reservations at hotels, and they'll only be able to refund once the governments make something official. So Gen Con folks need to wait so everyone who has already put money down can effectively and efficiently get refunds from the city of Indianapolis. Yeah, and I have heard like similar things, like that it may be something from the convention side, like the convention center itself. Basically, yeah, city ordinances that, or even for Gen Con themselves, like they want to get their money back for reserving the space. And if they just cancel without it being a citywide government ordinance, they can't do that.
I mean, I want to say we talked a little bit about it, but I definitely agree it's not just a one side, because even ignoring, how the people of Gen Con, if they want the convention to go on or not, Indianapolis, this is a great boon of a lot of money coming into their town.
Huge.
So it's definitely got to be something you can't just. I mean, yeah. In the end, I say be worried about the lives, but it is something you have to think about.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's unfortunate because I wish they would just be like, hey, I just want them to come out and say it one way or the other. And it's frustrating that they maybe can't for whatever reason right now. Marcel the Archibald said, there's so many dimensions to the quarantine, what effects it will have in our board game industry and life in general. What happens even after mass gatherings are canceled or postponed? Vendors and small game companies might fold. Distributors and production houses might go the same way. Designers and developers might default back to regular jobs to pay the bills. Game store owners might lose customers. People around the world might be so disturbed by isolation that once they're allowed outside again, they might favor outdoors activities over playing around a table. Well, that's not going to happen to us. Don't worry. Might impact our hobby for a while. Yeah, there's more to talk about for sure. I mean,
No,
the
and that's
long-term
why
impact.
I think trying to take Gen Con and not just pushing it or ending it, but transforming it into a digital space. Because what things they could do, like, yeah, a lot of vendors expect to have a boost of income there. What if they said, like, look, we set up a site that we can link to for you. Like, everyone would have their special Gen Con page. So you could literally go through and click, oh, I'm going to go visit Paizo. I'm going to go visit, come on. So they still get some revenue and some sales. And then you can be like, oh, look, there's the indie list. Like,
Yeah.
I think that could help a lot of people out and say, oh, I mean, it doesn't help Indianapolis. They're the people who are probably hurt the most by that.
Yeah, yeah,
you
but
know.
any kind of like they said, like fun. The way that on Humble Bundle you can choose how much of your money do you want to go to the companies or to a charity or to Humble Bundle the company themselves. It'd be cool if maybe they had some kind of implementation of that for like, hey, if you buy our game, like you can decide some of your money can go towards local restaurants. You know what I mean? Or even the hotels, maybe just like the community in general. There's a lot of stuff they could do, and I hope they're thinking about this more than we are.
There's definitely some discussion in the comment section. I love Ivan mentions how he gets sick at Gen Con without COVID.
Yes, as do I, pretty much every single year.
Oh yeah. Oh, con fever. Yeah, and a lot of people, like Hippie's mentioning how he hasn't been in a convention in a while, and he'd love to go with his wife, but yeah, you probably shouldn't go to conventions this year, or at least definitely not right now.
Yeah, probably not. Probably not. I see Ivan said, if they hold it, how bad do you think games and retail will be? I'm sure shipping is bad. I don't. Oh, you mean like to get the
Oh,
stuff brought
like if
in?
my idea requires shipping to happen.
Mm.
Uh, though I don't. I mean, remember that not the conventions, the companies that go there, they pay usually for pallets that come over and come in there. So I'm wondering how much, like, could that money be expected to be in what people's shipping would be? I don't know.
Who knows? Yeah.
But it's still like, yeah, the shipping would be prices and maybe they'd eat the cost something, but still a lot better than the convention canceling.
Yeah, there were a couple of people in the comment section for this who didn't thought we were being too negative. They think they should still hold Gen Con. Things will be okay by then. These are a few weeks ago. I don't know if they still feel that way. I think they're being naive, personally. But we shall see. On Halo X30 said, curious if Essen Spiel will go through. They also have not said anything. But again, that's later. And I expect that once we see what Gen Con does, I assume they will follow suit.
Well, when is Essen held again? I'm totally
November
blanking.
usually, or
November,
October.
yeah.
I think it might be October this year.
Well, I will say I know Oktoberfest, which is held in September, I think got pushed. I don't think it got canceled. So I will say they're more likely to push it or cancel it than Gen Con. I could see Gen Con going on and Essen still getting canceled or pushed.
You think that they're is what I'm hearing is that you think they're more sensible than Americans?
I mean, it all depends on your areas and the government and stuff like that. I'm just saying because I've seen something in that general timeline much closer already get pushed. I don't know how things. I think that they're willing to be more independent than America. I don't think either of them are looking at each other. Like if Essen decides to push, I don't think that's when Gen Con's like, you know what, we're going to push too. I think that we should not expect either one of them to greatly affect the other's decision, but that's just me.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I mean, we'll see. I mean, they're far enough apart, but I mean, I think if it were me, I would both of them. I would be looking at Comic-Con and every other convention. I'd already be looking at what everyone else was doing, but who knows? They have so many other things going on. We'll see. I mean, we got to find out. Like if they're gonna cancel it or move it. They're running out of time. They are really pushing it for when they're going to make this announcement. We'll see. Now, we're talking a lot about possibly conventions being canceled, but let's focus on the silver lining, some of the stuff that you can do at home. We put out a video with tips about playing games remotely, and a lot of people came in with what they've been doing, their solutions, and some helpful stuff that they were talking about. So Chris Dunn said, played King's Dilemma just last night using an overhead shot of the table, shared via Zoom, so people could see each vote develop. We distributed secret agendas via email, sending JPEGs of the cards to the player with the lowest prestige. They discarded one, chose one, and sent the rest on to the next highest player. Everyone tracked their own wealth and power. It worked surprisingly well. The only hard part was remembering everything that was going on, since it had been a long time since we last played. So we've thought about doing King's Dilemma maybe with our group. I think it would be a challenge for sure, but he said it worked pretty well.
I think we could do it. I would like to. I really do enjoy that game, and I would like to continue it. And I think our group would too.
A great excuse to get further in a legacy campaign game.
Oh yeah, I mean there are a lot of things we're working on that I'm pretty happy we are because we can get everyone since they're home.
Right. E.H. Engel, or maybe it's just Engel, said Spirit Island just entered early access on Steam. Looking forward to playing it this weekend. That's a digital option maybe to check out. Zabu-san said, I'm introducing some friends to Kingdom Death Monster on Tabletop Simulator. If you're okay with using unofficial mods and are a little bit tech savvy, it's a great option. Another one with a lot of content to wade through. Our family plays games said there are a few more places you can play board games online. One place we play is Board Game Arena. We've played Keyflower, Clans of Caledonia, and a few other good games on it. A couple other people also mentioned Board Game Arena. I think that's pretty popular. It's just not one, I've never personally used it. Have you ever tried it out, Will?
No, I don't think so. My usual digital tabletop, if we're ignoring like just Splendor digital version, would be something like Tabletopia or Tabletop Simulator. It's just
the ones we mentioned in the video.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Board Game Arena, from what I know, is a little more, it's not as automated. There's more stuff like you have to do manually for the rules, but it sounds like it has a lot of games on it. And a lot of people really like it, so.
Well, you do know my favorite part of Arkham Horror is that 30 minutes of setup.
I love that. That's awesome. Um, Super Mega Vega said, we've been playing Splendor and Small World on Steam. We also play Keyforge. You can upload your decks, and it works pretty well. I mean, this is a great time to also point out, I mentioned Humble Bundle before. There's a Humble Bundle right now for Asmodee digital games that includes Splendor, Small World, Mysterium, Scythe at certain tiers. That if you're looking for an option for quarantine, and if you don't have a lot of those games already digitally, that's a pretty great option, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So take a look at that. That's running for another week or so, I think. Oh, so Hippie mentioned it in the chat just yesterday. Offered a whole slew of Asmodee games. Yeah, definitely.
And Chris also mentioned they just figured out how to continue their Gloomhaven game.
We're trying. We're trying.
You're all remotely.
Oh, Brandon said, I thought Board Game Arena was more automated. Haven't tried it yet, though. So who knows? I don't know. I could be completely wrong. If you know more about Board Game Arena, then you can let... You know, I mean, it probably also depends a lot, because the thing with these other programs, at least, is that some of them are fan-made, some of them are official, so the level of automation really depends on which game you're playing and where you got it from.
Right. And speaking of fan-made stuff, we know one company was cracking down. I think we talked about it. I don't know if you have any comments from Fantasy Flight and Asmodee.
I think we talked about that on our podcast, maybe.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if we. They all blurred together in quarantine.
Yeah, that they've been removing some of their mods and stuff from Tabletop Simulator, but I haven't heard much about that lately. It seems like that died down. Like, I don't know if they really went that far with it, but I don't know.
They got caught.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's the internet. I feel like sometimes people find stuff and they like jump to the worst possible conclusion, which I don't blame them. It's Asmodee. They usually do that. But we'll see. I don't know. That's something else. If anyone in the chat or anywhere knows about that, has heard any updates, you can let us know. Sild Seffing said, I'm using Tabletopia, but a couple weeks ago my wife and I were playing Gonshane Clever with my daughter who's away at college using FaceTime. We even managed a clumsy game of Mysterium. Yaza Hughes said, trying to set up Tainted Grail for webcam play, but need to invest in better cameras as mine are old 720p ones. Need some budget action cameras in 4K. I use OBS with multi-cameras, then link to Google Hangouts with the virtual camera. Sounds similar to what we do. We're not in 4K, that's for sure. But yeah, that's the struggle, is getting the cameras to look good too.
Yeah.
That can be tough. Bernardus Sundajaja, sorry if I said your name wrong, said, my gaming buddy and I have been playing Coup Reformation remotely with one physical copy, as well as simple games like Go Nuts for Donuts, Onitama. We'll try Love Letter and Hive soon. Coup Reformation, I know it has more roles and stuff in it. That seems like it would be hard to work remotely without everyone having their own... Maybe they're doing something where they take pictures of the cards, but you're like switching roles all the time. You're bluffing and stuff. I don't know how you make that work with only one copy. I don't know. What do you think? Well, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, no, I'm trying to think how I'd do it. Like what you could do is, oh God, like the thing that comes to my mind is if you had an overhead, for example. And like, let's say you had the cards in sleeves, and you put like a green circle piece of paper underneath the sleeve with it, so you know that is green circle card. So if you get it, you have a little chart like, okay, green circle is this. Except part of the game is so you have to keep track of yourself, and I feel like that's sort of handicapping it a little.
Maybe, yeah, I don't know. It's hard. It's hard. We finagled something the other night where you had a separate camera for my hand of cards.
Right, but I feel like that's also because you weren't expecting. We weren't trading cards, really.
Right.
Like that's like the Coup or we had it very early on, the game with the masks. I'm blanking on the name of it right now. Masquerade, yeah.
It's got Masquerade title.
Everyone's rotating titles. I just find that so difficult to do.
It seems tedious at best. Yeah. We talked about too. We've been playing over. We've tried out a little bit. Everyone's talking about Zoom now. We use Google Hangouts a lot. There's this new Google Meet thing now we're trying. We're using it right now. Mm-hmm. And Jacob Hrikoff said, "Please don't promote Zoom. It's a privacy disaster." But then I just really had to read this comment because he followed this up with, "Google something about it." I mean, if you're worried about privacy with Zoom, you shouldn't be using Google, my friend. That's just as bad, if not
I
worse.
didn't know. I think it's more of there's that kind of privacy, but I think it's like it's easy to hack into kind of
Yeah,
thing or something.
yeah. I think I don't know. I think it goes both ways. To me, it's funny. Yeah. I mean, always research yourself for these programs if you're concerned about privacy stuff. I don't know. It's I don't. I'm just like, look, the NSA, they're gonna get us. They're listening right now. There's
That's
nothing.
because they're fans, not because they're using their technology. They wait until the
Yeah,
cameras turn off.
yeah, of course. But yeah, use your discretion, of course, about anything that we talk about ever. Uh, a few more miscellaneous items before we wrap up. We reviewed a documentary a few weeks back that we were able to watch in quarantine called The Game Designers, about game design. And Zoom Out Media, the production company that put it together, left a comment in response to our review. They said, I'm getting a number of comments back, and the one thing about the movie, the one thing that I'm noticing is that a lot of people would like to see something a little deeper in terms of game creation, development, and ultimately bringing it to the market. The Game Designers casts a wide net, but for a potential follow-up feature film, it might be interesting to go deeper with just one specific designer. This may or may not be something I'll be working on next. So, fun little tease. What I think, yeah, we think we said during our review that's something we'd like to see. Any more specifics you can think about for a game documentary, or maybe is there a designer you'd like to see him follow?
A designer I'd like to. I don't. I mean, one of the reasons that's nice is because you get to see someone who like tries to go by Kickstarter, one who tries to go by that. So I'm like, if you could only choose one, and like, part of me feels guilty of like, well, choose someone who's a big designer. But I'm like, yeah, but part of it's just like we're already good, so make the funding. No, it's
I think we've been talking about it so much. I think a fascinating one would be Isaac Childress of Gloomhaven, especially like if you. It's unfortunate now. I mean, the story is now it's happening already. It's happened already. But if you could talk about it from the beginning and talk about the design process of that giant game of one guy and how it went from nothing to a juggernaut, I think that's a pretty juicy story that could be good to dive into. Otherwise, I'd just, say like the designers who make my favorite games, obviously, but
the Parker brothers.
but I think that would be like just a really interesting narrative, like a cool flow to that story. Because I don't know, there's many other examples like that in the board game world. There's plenty of successful indie games, but that went from that place to that place.
Well, not only do you know that, like with Gloomhaven, you're going to see that rise of the independent from out of nowhere. You're also going to get the current history and how that's affected the board game industry as well in there. So
right, with Frosthaven right now, yeah,
you get plenty of twists and turns.
Yeah, I'm sure we're gonna be seeing movies and documentaries about this period in our history for a long time to come.
I can't wait to see the Oscar nominations for those.
They'll be good. You'll be watching them comfortably from your home over Zoom. No one will be there in person. Now, Brandon Graham said he wants to see behind the scenes at Hasbro. Honestly, yes. Or a Wizards of the Coast, like just looking at, Magic or just specifically a D&D for me would be more interesting. But yeah.
I love hearing when the Tolarian Community College is a channel I love watching, and it's one of the best Magic channels out there. And he's brought a lot of people from the industry to talk to them, and I just love hearing their thought process of like, this is how we look at white cards and why they're balanced. And even though a lot of people say they're not, they do work in this format. And hearing that process for a game, especially because Magic, you're dealing with a much larger game, would be great to hear them. Especially now, some companies I guess Hasbro would be the obvious easy one, but there's other companies that used to be just, we'll make the simple game, but now that board games become bigger, like, no, we should maybe try to branch out. I'd love to hear how do we enter that deeper board game market?
Yeah, yeah, something like that would definitely be fascinating. I think in general, I said in the review too, just I would like to see more of the sort of corporate side, rather than the just designers. Like I would like to see the daily offices of CMON or Fantasy Flight, or like one of these companies where they're not just freelancers who shop their games around. They actually come into work that day and they're like, "What's our game slate for the month?" You know.
So you want to go face to face with the King in Yellow? You know he runs these companies. We're all under his bidding.
I don't know that. I can't say that I know that for sure.
You're right. It might be Nolotep. I'm not 100% sure.
Now, we also reviewed a digital game called Tharsis, which is a board game that is now available on Switch. It's a video game, but it's a board game style video game. LPKB said, tried it, but no rulebook and or good tutorial makes this game unplayable for me. This is something we didn't really touch on in our review that I did think of actually as a miss, but I kind of let it go by the wayside. But I kind of agree. I think the tutorial was a pretty kind of weak in that game, and I wish there was just a board game style rule book I could just read through start to finish. I don't know. How do you feel maybe for Tharsis or in general about like I feel like in almost every board game app I've played, to be honest, the tutorials are pretty weak.
Well, they had a tutorial, but the way they designed it was that like you play through the tutorial and takes you into the game.
It was a learn by trial by fire type of thing.
A little bit. I mean, they tell you what to do and stuff, but like, I didn't know about the sign. I found out about the sign stuff on my own. Like, instead of doing like, learn how to do this, you're done. Next chapter. Like, it's more like the setup missions.
It's like when you sit down at a convention and they demo you a game and they're like, it's your turn. Here's what you can do. And you kind of just figure it out.
When it could have been maybe a little bit better if they did that and then they reset it. Like, great, now that you know. You know.
Yeah, I think I don't know what it is. I think this is an area, I think a lot of digital board games based on real board games, they fall back on the idea that, well, if they're playing this, probably they played the physical one, or they could look up a video that tells you how to play it or the rule book, and we don't need to work that hard. I think someone needs to crack open in real life too. There's a lot to be refined about the rules process. I don't know. Something to talk about. Benja said, you forgot to mention the other big Kickstarter going on right now, Cloudspire by Chip Theory Games. Yeah, this was one that I know is really popular. It wasn't one of our picks, mostly for me because it was like a new edition / expansion. Usually if we're not familiar with the games, it depends. Sometimes those go by the wayside for us, at least for me. But I know it's pretty popular. I know also, I think the channel is called No Pun Intended. Did a review recently that I think kind of tore the game apart in some ways that people said was pretty well done. But yeah, I don't know, but we'll give it a shout out now, but I don't know if it's still going. It's just not one that I have much familiarity with. I don't know if did you ever like catch that one, catch your eye?
It doesn't ring a bell, but I'm also more of a visual, so I bet if you put an image on screen, I'd be like, oh, I remember that.
Yeah, I think you would know the cover if you saw it, because it's been around places. Kareem Thalgard, back on more Kickstarter stuff, said the Tales from the Loop, the board game, looks and sounds pretty much like a direct transformation from the RPG. Cool if playing an actual RPG doesn't appeal or is intimidating, but otherwise I don't see much reason to get that one if I already have the RPG. I think it's more of an opportune moment to appeal to fans of the show who may not have known about the RPG and universe before getting the game made. I want to hold that comment for a second because I also want to read one from Marcel the Archibald, who was talking about the Deadlands RPG and said that it bursts with so much creative world building. It's a shame that no game designer has developed some sort of white box board game system into which players can plug an RPG source book and play as a board game with board game mechanics and components, kind of like Time Stories or the Final Girl Kickstarter we talked about. This way, non-role players could also enjoy these worlds. There would be complications as to what the components should look like, etc. But wouldn't it be great? And yeah, I thought this was interesting because that was one of the things I thought too when we saw Tales from the Loop, that it sounds like very similar, like the dice rolling and the checks and things are really close to what the RPG was. What do you think about, like, is there room for more RPG and board game sister games?
Well, it's one of those things is like, it could be the same, but at the same time, for a lot of people, reading a 12-page rulebook is a lot easier than reading a 100-page RPG core book.
That's for sure. Although a 12-page rulebook might be optimistic for a lot of these games, but certainly
I chose 2 numbers, but it's still usually they're not as big as a core book.
That is certainly true. One is more intimidating than the other.
And some people, and there's also like, do you enjoy theater of the mind more? Do you need physical things on the board?
Mm-hmm.
Um, some people just don't like role playing. They
Yeah.
like more of the mechanics and stuff, and you can see that a little bit easier in a board game than you can with. I mean, some of those games, especially like since we're in Free League publishing, Mutant Year Zero, there's a ton in there for you to treat it like with mechanics and stuff like that. But I think there is some room if people are willing to buy it. I think if there's a marketplace, that's what Kickstarter's for, right? To see if there's a market for it.
Yeah, that's absolutely
What
true.
it's supposed to be for.
Yeah, I think it is what you said, that yeah, people just for whatever reason might not be super interested in an RPG. They want a board game version. But I also think that, I mean, it would be awesome, Marcel's idea, if it was possible, if it was feasible. But often I find that, if there's a theme you really like, there's probably a good board game for it at this point. Might not be true across all themes, but if you really like one RPG setting, like with Deadlands, we talked about Doomtown that exists. There's you can usually find what you want.
Yeah, but the problem is, it's sort of, for example, like, yes, there's Mutant Year Zero is post-apocalyptic, but if you're a Fallout fan, you really want that official Fallout flavor.
Well, that's why there's
a
Fallout board game,
Nuka-Cola,
and a Fallout RPG.
An example. Yes, so like that's the thing. Like there might be thematically similar things, but sometimes you really want the official thing in there.
I guess, but I feel like it's pretty close. Like if you really like there are Dungeons and Dragons board games, but if you really like Alien, well, there's Nemesis. There's usually parallels. Now, we also were unsure what PAX means. Remember we talking about how there's a bunch of games like PAX Pamir and PAX whatever, and we made our minions go out and do the research for us. Both Kareem Thalgard and Adam French let us know that PAX is Latin for peace. So
that never happens at a board game table.
So now you know. Yeah, I know, it's a real misnomer for a lot of these games.
PAX Unplugged, Peace Unplugged.
Oh no, this is subliminal messaging. And Hoser 40K also said, with a little tweaking, you could probably get your board game shelves in the background to line up and make it look like you guys are in the same room. I think we've gotten closer with that. I think we've almost managed it.
Hold on. We don't want to get too close because then people will realize we actually are in the same room. This board game shelf, the other side is Jonathan.
How weird would it be if I got up right now and just walked over there and you saw me in the background? It'd be kind of creepy, wouldn't it?
Oh, God, I'd be terrified.
All right. So that was a lot of comments. We got through. I think it was over a month since we did our last one, so we had a lot to work through, but a lot of big subjects to discuss. And if anyone has more stuff that they want to ask us in the chat or in the comments, or if you have more ideas about anything we talked about here, something tells me that next round of viewer comments, we will be coming back to some of these subjects again.
Oh, yeah. But thanks for watching and joining us right now. We loved seeing your chat here, so you can actually respond to some of your thoughts on this. And we hope to do so again in future Meeple Gallery streams.
Yeah, stay tuned to our social media and our site for schedules that will go out at the beginning of each week to tell you when we're going to be streaming and what we're going to be streaming. And if you like what we do and you are financially able right now, we would appreciate it if you checked out our Patreon page, because you can sign up there for just a few bucks a month. You might be able to chat in our Discord, which is fun, or listen to our podcast that we do every week.
Oh, yeah. So many fun arguments about movies, video games, and all the other nerdy stuff we're up to.
Yes, for sure. Everyone's saying thank you. Thanks, Johnny, Angel, Brandon, Graham in the chat. Hoser40K said, I'll catch you tomorrow for Mothership. That's right. Our Mothership RPG in honor of Mother's Day will be tomorrow.
Yep.
It's going to be fun, guys. All right. Thanks again. And have a good night and have a good weekend if we don't see you for that one. My name is Jonathan.
I'm Will. And this was the Meeple Gallery. See you later.
Bye, guys.